Well, it was one hell of a week. I'll never forget that week. The first week of May, it was a great week. It was a week that people will be talking about for a long, long time. 1 week ago, we were in here saying, wow, look at this hockey team. Look at this crew. They've changed everything. They're new, it's different, and it's all good. And literally a week later, we're in here. People are shocked. They were waiting for Hello Darkness. We don't do that until the season's actually over. And as of now, it's not.
Right. It's not.
Right? It's not over.
It's not over.
It's only 3-0.
It's not over, Hazy.
Not over.
But you would think coming out last night, and I tried to put this into words on the panel last night, but it was tough to watch that. It was just like it's kind of like when you're down 0-2 and you're fighting for your life, it didn't reflect that. And I know you could say, like, and I'm so tired of the players saying, you know, we need some puck luck or chances, or the coaches saying power plays. It's like, no, you're not really understanding it. It's kind of a get it done league. It's like that wasn't
wild,
even
man.
close.
It's
it
wild.
wasn't even close. It was so disappointing.
They got puck luck. They got Tavares' goal was puck luck. It was a smart play
Jamie,
thrown towards the net.
I don't know what you guys thought. I thought Florida was trying to say, get back into the series. I don't think Florida played particularly well last night. I really
thought they
don't.
were fine.
I thought they
were
played well
opportunistic.
defensively. I thought they played well defensively. That was
Yes, I'll give you that, but also I don't know how much of it was them and how much of it was the Leafs decided we're not here to play, which is always difficult. Like, you do have to credit the team that won and the team that defended, and when the stats look like they did in favor of Florida, absolutely they're worthy of that, for sure. But if I thought the Leafs were 100% gunning last night, I would really fall on that sword and say phenomenal performance by Florida. But no one can say that. No one can say, well, the Leafs threw everything at them, and, man, they just pushed them to the outside. Like, I thought Barkov was phenomenal last night. Barkov made Austin Matthews look like a rookie last night. And Duclair had some hop, clearly, and he was on top of it. Reinhart scores the OT winner.
Right.
Defensively, pretty good. Bob, when he had to be, was good. But I don't think it was like their best game. I don't think Florida left there saying we left it all on the ice. We were phenomenal.
No.
It was almost like they were willing to accept that the Leafs just had no interest in winning. And it was a miracle it went to overtime. Like, it really, when you consider the way their best players played, Joseph Wall goes in there in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
It was there. It was there for the Leafs. Even
That's
with
the
all
thing.
of that, it was still there for them.
Didn't you think going into overtime it would be kind of like, we have like a third shot at life here. It's like we weren't at our best. And where people get frustrated, I was talking to somebody on my way home today, and they say, why does every other team respond? The Kraken go home, and they've been in the league for 2 years. Why do the Kraken go home and put a beat down on the Dallas Stars? You could talk about taking ice away, Hayes. The Dallas Stars under Pete DeBoer with that goaltender, pretty good team defensively. Yeah. But the Kraken.
How about Carolina? Carolina had 8 goals hung on them by the New Jersey Devils. 8.
Yes.
You think Rod Brindamore ever accepts that? An 8 spot on the board.
But you know what? You got to give props to New Jersey.
Absolutely.
They said we got our ass handed to us for 2 games, and we have to go out there and show these guys something. We're not going down like this.
Make it a series.
That's where the frustration. Yeah, make it a series and show some signs of life. And I've said it about this market 100 times over. We can accept losing. You know why? Because we've done it since 1967. But when you don't go down scratching and clawing and fighting for your life, people in this city can't stand that. They really can't stand that. And for the people that are saying, oh, the Florida's doing such a good job defensively, do you not think the Vegas Golden Knights held some meetings and said, guys, we got to take away time and space from 97 and 29. No, don't allow them to go anywhere. But you know what they said? We don't care what you're doing. We don't care what you're doing because we're on a mission and we're going to steamroll right through you. We'll skate around you. We'll skate through you. It doesn't matter what kind of defensive posture. We're at the point where we're sick of the other garbage that we did in the past, and we want to make a statement and we want to win. And they do it. It's like McDavid and Draisaitl, all the talk, we always do these lists and power rankings and all the nonsense that we put time and effort into. Those two animals in Edmonton, they are in a different league than what's here. It's not even close. It's not even close. If we had to do some kind of top 50 list right now and circle back on that and the Quizmaster started blasting out hundreds of emails like he does, it wouldn't even be in the same league. We'd have to make two different lists.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, watching your panel hit last night, I found it tough not to look at the disgust in your face. Like, you were mad. Like, you could tell that. And there's, talking
Jamie,
to people
trust
today.
I wasn't mad. I slept like a baby last night.
You know what I mean.
I was just almost in disbelief. I'm like,
disbelief. There it is.
Yeah, it was just
like, Brian, you're the temperature of this market. I got a good, good dose of it today. Like, people are frustrated. They're pissed off. There are some believers that think there's, they never know. You can win four in a row.
You want to force yourself into that, right, Noodles? Like,
yeah, you do.
Like, I'm having a tough time finding anyone on earth that thinks they win Wednesday. Forget the next four. I'm having a tough time finding someone that truly believes that they're going to even attempt to show up on Wednesday. But that's what's kind of surprising about all this. Not that they're going to lose, right? Like, it's a competitive sport. Florida's on a heater. Credit Florida. Yeah. Like, Florida's alive. They're opportunistic. They look like they're full of life and they want to go out and win. Like, they have Stanley Cup ambitions and they're going out and following up on that. The other team deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah.
But the Leafs have never had an issue with the first three games. Like, I was having that conversation today. It's like, well, just like it always is. No, it's not. They were up 3-1 and choked away the series. That's like it always was. Getting pumped through three games, this is totally different. They didn't do that against Washington the first year. They didn't do it at any point against Boston, Tampa, Columbus, Montreal. They've never done this. They have never embarrassed themselves through three games. They always showed up for the first few, and then they panicked. Then they puked. They haven't done that before. And everyone's got different people they're looking at. And I understand it. It's a firing line, and everyone's looking at Dubas and Shanahan and Keefe. And what about the goaltending? And Justin Hall's back out there. For me, it's two guys. That's it. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. That's it. You mentioned McDavid and Draisaitl. We don't get to Hyman and Nugent Hopkins and Kane and Bouchard and Skinner until we go through those two guys first.
True.
And you look at the best players, the best teams since the lockout. Zetterberg and Datsuk, Sid and Gino, Taves and Kane, Kopitar and Doughty, Kucherov and Point. You could use Makar and McKinnon. Like, there's always a two-pack, and then everyone else filters down. And those two at the top of the mountain, the best teams over the last 15 years, those top two guys were gamers. They were great regular season players, but they were even better in the playoffs. And these two are lucky because it is only 3-0. Maybe there is a miracle out there.
Maybe there is.
And maybe there is. And maybe that's what they need to really change everything. But what I saw to those two players last night, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it.
No.
Like, that was a complete no-show from the two best players on the team. And I can't believe that they played like that last night.
No,
if
I
I'm
can't
Shanahan, ownership, Dubas, I'm looking at those two, I'm saying, I paid these guys everything. Neither guy would commit 8 years. Both guys needed every penny they could get. They get the commercials, the marquees, everything that comes with superstardom. And for them to play like that last night in a must-win, I can't believe it. Maybe I should, because it's 7 years. But that's as bad as it's ever been. For two superstars wearing that uniform to play like that last night in a must-win, inexcusable isn't a strong enough term.
No,
I can't believe they played like that.
Of all the games I watched Mitch Marner, I don't know if he's played a worse game than he did last night.
That's as bad as it gets, considering the context.
Oh, I know. It's just the coughing up of the puck, and he looked like a guy that was on an audition on that line that just got called up or something, and he gave away the puck, I think, 8 times. Like, noticeable ones where it was just, I don't know. I have no excuse. And I just wish one time one of them would come out and say, you know what? we should all be embarrassed, and we are going to fight for our lives on Wednesday night. Instead, they go to the puck luck, and we're looking for a chance, and we got to.
It's crazy.
I
wish that's what I was waiting for after the game too. Chris Johnston had tweet out, Austin Matthews not available. He's in the back breaking sticks. He's not talking. Like he's snapping. Instead, he came out and he said, sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. Wow. Like what a comment post-game. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. Man.
Yeah, like did they somehow trick themselves into thinking they actually had good games and they just got screwed
I don't think
or something?
so.
That's a November comment. That's a process comment. What did Matthews have? 2 shots on net? What was going in? Like, if he threw 15 at Bob last night, yeah, okay. Right? If they had 52 shots and they lose 3-2, whatever. But their best players at no point were even involved.
Yeah, and you said it starts with those two, Hayes, and it does. It does.
Those are the two
They
best
both
players.
walk to the mailbox on the 1st of July, and they pick up a lot of chunk of change. They pick up a massive chunk of change. But don't kid yourself. There was 5 or 6 other of the main guys that were right there with them.
Absolutely.
It was all
Tavares
around
wasn't
nonsense.
There. O'Reilly had a really tough night. Really tough night. Willie was okay, but, okay doesn't – like when you have a dominant third the game before and then you're just okay the next game. It's like –
you know what? Bottom line is everyone, like when you're looking at it the other way, there's probably a handful of guys that you're like, yeah, I like their game. And it's the unfortunate part where it's the bottom of your roster going, you know what? Like Sheldon Keefe's trying to get the game, not the game tire, but the extra goal. And he's got those guys on the ice because that's who is going that night.
Noodles, think about it, though.
Part,
the
right?
fourth line was the go-to line, and there was only 2 guys on the line.
I know, 11-7.
You're right, though.
They started like a house on fire the first 4 minutes, and they get the goal, and you think, okay, they're but Florida's a resilient team, and then after that there was no push, and I thought their team D in their own zone, they got caved in off the forecheck, and this Joseph Wall came in. It could have been ugly. Florida might have won that in regulation.
He played really well, all things considered.
Good on him. Good on that kid to come in because
really positive.
And I hope that Samson. I mean, by all accounts, it sounds like he might be available. I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor, but just a bad sequence. Him having to leave, Wall coming in. The guy you're paying $5 million is the E-Bug. He's coming down. That's
a wild scene that Murray was down. Was he down in the room? I don't know.
Now he comes back. No, I think he was able to go onto the bench if he wanted to.
Yeah,
but
I guess you're right.
If he wanted to, why wouldn't he want to?
Well, I mean, if the team wanted to, I don't know. You know what I mean? Either way, I'm sitting here thinking I don't. What do you guys not expect? What do you want to see Wednesday night? Obviously a win, but you want to what do you need to see? Relentless house on fire?
I think the best. It starts with the best players,
right?
It's a scenario where they're lucky they get to play again. Matthews and Marner, and Tavares and Willie and O'Reilly, all of these guys, they still have an opportunity to at least push it forward, right? It's not over yet. You can win Game 4 if you do that. You come back Game 5, then the psychological game shifts. Maybe it is different by the end of the week. And listen, they won that first round. They earned that. That goes on the record, right? 19 years without winning a round. You get one. You deserve the accolades from that. But to flip it like a complete 180 in 7 days, I didn't think was possible. I really didn't think it would be a scenario where we're going on the air today and people are like, wow, this is going to get nuclear. It's crazy that they've done this to themselves. And, yes, the first 2 games could have gone back and forth, but it didn't. Last night they still had a chance. They get a break. They get a couple of big stops. It goes in. It's 2-1. You reset today.
Yeah.
But now you're down 3-0, and you're looking at the big guys, and it's difficult to have faith. They'll play better than they did last night. I fully expect that. But will they be great? Will they be dominant? Will they be, without question, the best players on the ice? I can't say that. And I think
they have to be good
tough.
enough to win. That's what they have to be. And
that's what's
you know
tough,
what?
Though.
as we mentioned off the top, they have to scratch and claw and say to the Florida Panthers, I mean, this is what I'm kind of hoping, Brian. I don't know if it's in their DNA to say, you know what, if you're taking us down, you're going to take a chunk for it. And I don't know if that's their mentality. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it seems like every other team that loses, the Tampa Bay Lightning, like you're going to get punched in the face.
Right.
And we'll shake your hands at the end of the series, but you're going to pay a price for beating us. And I thought, I just know, I hear it every day when I walk around. They're like, why is the Kraken responding? Why are that young team in New Jersey responding? Why does Carolina why does everyone in the playoffs respond? And it was their chance last night. They said it. Ryan O'Reilly said it. This is going to be a long series. This is a business trip. Blah, blah, blah. And they went out there and they all laid an egg. But they were all terrible, man.
It's who they are, man.
No, I know, but I don't think Noodle said like a handful of guys had good games. That's a crock. None of them did.
Well, I'll give Camp and Lafferty.
Great. Yeah, but you know what? They were still on the ice. They were still on the ice for that game-winning goal.
Well,
and that game-winning goal. That game-winning goal was just atrocious. I don't know what the hell TJ Brody was thinking on that play. Like, to casually give up the inside of the ice like that. Like, Reinhart, if you watch Reinhart, the only way to get to the net is on the inside. And right at the last second, TJ Brody tries to stick check him on the outside. That is a house league bantam move.
Yep.
And for him to try that stunt in that particular moment, it's outrageous. It's outrageous for him to just casually say, go ahead and score.
Well, he wasn't alone there. Like, for a player in a Stanley Cup playoff game where the other team is in must-win situation, for him to get it at the blue line, curl back, skate through, flip up, he never got touched at any point.
Trust me, I've had this scenario a lot of times where the coach is trying to get a message across, and it's an X's and O's type segment in practice, and he says to one side of the ice, guys, turn your sticks over because I don't want any interruptions here. That's what it looked like. They had their sticks turned over, and it was some kind of controlled scrimmage.
Right. He was in a non-contact jersey. Sam Reinhart was in a non-contact jersey.
It's supposed to be desperation time. And if you look, someone's got to want to kill that guy right now. Like, completely knock him on his rear end and look at this nonsense. And then the stick check to the outside, giving the inside ice is just, wow. Where is the you talk about fighting for your life? That's not fighting for your life.
No, it's so disappointing. It is.
On a lot of different levels. You looked at it. They iced it 3 times in overtime. They looked nervous. They looked like they were scared to lose, and they lost. Like, that's the one thing. We all know this. Confidence is a fine line, right? When you have confidence, you make an extra. Sam Bennett's trying between the leg plays for the game winner with 3 minutes left. I was like, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. Like, that's what I thought as an old grizzled guy sitting on the couch. Like, I don't know if you do that stuff on, to try. Now, it was a terrible turnover.
O'Reilly
O'Reilly.
And then you
go towards the puck, and then, it was, and I understand this, believe me. I'm dating myself. That's a highly skilled play that guys do now. Because and I heard Sam Bennett, I specifically went and watched his media afterwards because I knew he'd be asked about it. And he said, the goalie followed me well. I knew that was my only angle to try and change the angle. He said he did a good job coming across. Now, Wall made a good save on that. He didn't elevate it. But I kept thinking to myself, there's a gift horse. There's a mistake. The goalie covers up, and this guy's trying to between the legs play. You got nothing but an opportunity to win it in overtime, and they look jittery. They iced it 3 times in a row, like they just never got into a groove. And Florida said, "Okay, we'll go get it.
We'll take it. Yeah, Florida.
We'll take that one.
Florida's playing with confidence. Florida's on their toes.
Right.
That's it. And I don't know if this is on Keefe, which I believe it has to be to an extent, and how much of it is on the players. But it's as if the Leafs are just, they're not imposing their will at any point. Like, they're just trying to counter everything. Like, they're fighting like Floyd Mayweather, but without the same amount of ability to push when they have to. Like, they're just kind of sitting back and allowing Florida. And Florida, yes, they're pinching. Yes, they're hitting guys on the fly. They're moving the puck. And Florida's like, we're not going to stop.
Playoff hockey.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going. Like, it's working for us.
Keefe seemed pretty proud of himself after the game when he's talked about the adjustment, and he said, We had some quick opportunities out of the gate. We made some adjustments, and we bypassed the defensemen because their D-men are aggressive standing up. And in the first 5 minutes, we had 2 or 3 chances. Well, great. What the hell happened after that? If you think the transition game is the entire game and you're going to live and die by that, it was goofy to listen to.
Yeah, the
first 5 minutes we had some great transition chances. I don't know. Maybe he was stunned watching those guys.
I think he was, but I think he understands. He's in big trouble. Like, if this happens, right? If they lose in 4, if they lose in 5, I think we're all bracing for possibly sweeping changes. Now, who knows with this group? Because it'll be the 7th year in a row. They've gone back to the well year after year after year. So anything is possible. And trying to predict what ownership and Shanahan will do has been difficult in the past. But I think Keefe is probably – that's in the back of his mind. This is how quickly it changed. And that's where, I think I can speak for a lot of people in this city and a lot of Leaf fans, is that I really thought after that Tampa series they would take off. I really genuinely believed that. I believed in the monkey off the back. And I think what makes this so stunning, if it goes down in 4, if they drop it in the next 2 games, if they lose, period, is that even with all the failure year after year after year, there was some sort of belief. Once they break through, they're gone, right? It's a first-round curse. It's a first-round monkey on the back. It's a first-round pressure that they need to alleviate. And I believed it. I believed that they would take off. I didn't think they'd crush Florida. I picked Leafs in 6. But the fact that it's gone the opposite way, I think has been incredibly damaging to the reputation. And I think it's been very difficult for Leaf fans to accept that they just got through it. They just got over that hurdle, and now it was supposed to be smooth sailing.
Yeah,
and it's
I had
worse
the
than
same
ever.
belief. I had the same belief
tough,
as
man.
the Montreal series. It's like if you look at that Montreal team a couple years ago, they barely they were limping into the postseason. Okay, limping in, and it's like the Leafs have an awesome opportunity here. You're a better team. Go out there and play better. You're going to like where you're at. Same as the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers were so inconsistent all year, and they found a way to knock off the Boston Bruins. You got to give them props for that. You got to give them props for finding the game at the right time of year. I mean, you got to tip your cap to these guys, although everyone's disappointed in this market what the Toronto guys are doing. The Florida Panthers are playing good hockey.
Yes.
But you would think that Toronto one time would say, we don't care how good you're playing. Just like the Kraken last night said to the Stars, we don't care how good your goalie is or how good you are defensively. We're going to put a whooping on you. And that's what they did. Number 29 and 97 have finally said, we're done with the garbage.
We've
had enough.
Performance on Saturday. It was over 10 minutes into the game on Saturday. Draisaitl McDavid just said, we're out of here.
That animal, number 29, he could have had 7 goals in the first 8 minutes.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. It comes back to, though, guys, I think we all, and whether we want to admit it or not, I said Leafs. I felt Leafs in 5 in this series, and because I thought that Florida caught lightning in a bottle. That was their Stanley Cup against Boston, where they were down 3-1.
Right.
They were down 3-1.
Yeah.
It was a foregone conclusion that Boston was just making it through. They were a breakaway away. Brad Marchand in Game 5 with 3 seconds left.
Yep.
If he scores, the series over in 5, and we wouldn't have thought twice about it. We would have just said Boston Leafs. That's what everyone talked about that from January on. That's what it's going to happen. If they get by Tampa, it's just, hey, we got to get over. The thing is Florida said we're allowed to play hockey too. But the one thing that I look at is I think what Leaf fans are struggling with, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's just this pathway, it is wide open. The pathway to the Stanley Cup is wide open. And Florida's saying, we'll put our hands up to go there too.
Yep.
And Carolina and New Jersey said, we're not going to go down 3-0. We're going to put our hands up to go 2-1.
Yep.
Edmonton's like, we can't go down 2 Cobb in Vegas because we got to give ourselves a chance to go home. Like the desperation from every team, all 7 teams out of 8 that are remaining, are like, this is available to us because Colorado's not staring at us. Boston's not there. Rangers aren't there.
Tampa's out.
Tampa's out. Like, now, let's breathe a little bit because they did get by Tampa. But I will bring up this. Have you had the conversation where the 9 games they played that maybe they haven't played that well? It's just they found a way to win in that scenario too, right? Because I talked to somebody from Tampa yesterday that felt that they could have won that series in 5 based on puck luck and based on where they were near the end of the game, the Leafs tying and coming back in games 3 and 4. So this is the playoffs are bananas right now. I can't explain it. I'm sorry.
And maybe that's really the glass half full. It's crazy. They have, the talent. Like, it's not – if they show up and they're pissed off and they're out rocking, it's happened before. But, it's difficult to convince people. It's like what George Bush used to say. There's an old saying down in Oklahoma. I'm sure it's down in Texas. Fool me once. And that's kind of where I think most fans are at. But one of the famous comebacks – down 0-3 would have been the Kings against the Sharks back in the day. Justin Williams was on that team. Willie's coming up in about 20 minutes. His take on that. Mike Johnson still to come. Chris Johnston still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Justin Williams in about 10 minutes. I'm urging people, please stop tweeting at us suggesting the Leafs can somehow acquire Connor Bedard before next season. Not happening.
I've got a bunch of that. I've actually had phone calls.
Wow, it's your own fault, Hayes. You put that tweet out there.
I know. I was joking. Like, how can you not have fun? Like, I'm trying to goof around a little bit. Some people were really furious with that. I was just joking. Like, maybe the Leafs can get in on the lottery tonight. Who knows?
I kind of chuckled, but then I started to read some of the replies. I'm like, that you were just being tongue-in-cheek because you were pissed off at the effort in that. So I knew the context of it, but there's no context button on Twitter.
You know what's weird about Twitter right now? Is that when you tweet out some things, it'll say, like, from Earth. You notice that? Like,
no,
it doesn't
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it doesn't say from Toronto or from Canada. It says from Earth.
That's
I'm like,
so stupid.
Did you see that, though?
Okay.
You had 187,000 impressions on that tweet. You better watch yourself, what you say on
I got to watch
Twitter
myself.
machine.
I do,
Exactly.
because obviously I understand they're not going to get in on the lottery tonight, and there is no trade that's going to happen.
How many propositions or how many potential the old "who says no" propositions? They started last night with some people in the studio. Who would say no to this if you did this? It's just. Let's see if they can win a game and show some stones and get back into a series.
Right.
Let's start with that.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then we'll cross the bridge in terms of what happens, in the future and all that. There's going to be a lot of time for that. They still have at least one more game left. And really it's got to be obviously a lot better than it was last night.
It's life or death. That's what
it's life or death. Yeah, it really is. And
guys, last night was life or death.
It was. That's what's disappointing is you go down, 0-3. Last night really was, and their best players, just completely no-showed. And what I couldn't understand either was like Sheldon Keefe has been mixing and matching line combinations since the preseason. And last night, Matthews and Marner have their 2 worst games of the season, you could argue. And he didn't change anything. Like, he never got them off the line.
Yeah,
But
like
Matthews
after a
was
certain
Willie
point,
like
he
what are you
always
doing
does,
last night?
you have to look at that and say, that is not working tonight. And one of the solutions, I don't know if he didn't want to do it or for what reason, maybe last night he had to sit Mitch's ass on the bench and say, not happening tonight, pal, and we can't do it. Not only are you not producing, you're coughing the puck up every time you're touching it. It's one of the worst games he could possibly play under those circumstances. And I love the kid. I love what he does. That's just what he did last night. And you can't run from that. And there's no other way to describe it. No way. No other way.
He is a conundrum, Marner. And Matthews is right there with him. Like, I think Marner is worst, like, statistically over the years in the playoffs And I know he's got points, and he had points in the first round. He had 6 points in the first 2 games last round.
Yeah,
and
but Darren Pang said it, Brian. Darren Pang, not us, said those are the quietest, kind of weirdest 6 points I've ever seen from a guy in a series.
They were, and I don't think he's dominated at any point in these playoffs. I don't recall a moment where I said, man, he was the best guy on the ice for that 20-minute period or 40-minute period or 60-minute period. And I can't figure it out with him because I thought it was, terrified of failure. But it's getting closer to terrified of the playoff intensity, or just can't get there for whatever reason. Because it is confounding, man. It really – this is a guy who puts up 100 points a year, is a first-team All-Star, is electric during the regular season.
And you talked about him being –
and then you get to the playoffs, and it just disappears.
Not even close. And you talked about him being the best player for 20 minutes. He does that 5 to 6 times a week, where you're like Marner in the second period, easily the best player on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
And for that particular night in the league, he was probably the best player in the world.
Yeah. During the regular season, that's not an issue.
That's what I was watching him last night. I'm like, that's not even the same guy. Maybe he's got an injury. I don't know.
I'm not going down that road.
I'm not either, man, because how else could you explain it?
It's time and space.
It's been 7 years, man.
Time and space. The game is different in the playoffs. You can't make a little dipsy do. Like you saw last night, him try to curl back, and he just got closed on. And hit, that was it, turned over, and away you go. Like, to me, you have to fight for every inch of ice. You've got to be quicker. And I know we got to go. We got 2 hours.
We got a lot to get
into
to break that down. Justin Williams coming up. We'll get Willie's take on Carolina. They're still up 2-1 in that series. What he makes of the playoffs so far, and when his team was down 0-3 to the Sharks, how did it turn? Like, how did they find a way to come alive? The LA Kings did that. One of only a few teams to ever come back to life after being down 0-3 in the series. Justin Williams, he will join us next. All right, Justin Williams coming up here in a moment. Got to ask Willie about being on the Celebrity Golf Tour.
A loser.
I think he played pretty well, though.
Yeah.
You told me that. You're like, are you watching your boy Justin Williams on tour? And I'm like, no way.
He was atop the leaderboard.
He was, man. I'll give him props.
Yeah, after like a couple of days, too, man. It was well into the tournament. I want to say it was down in San Antonio
Texas
or something. Down in Texas, yeah. And like Tony Romo was there. That Marty Fish shows up. And
Marty Fish.
And he plays well.
LeBron.
Yeah. He's like a good player.
Speaking of LeBron, we got to get into the Suns owner trying to take the ball off of Jokic later.
I know.
What was going on last night with that?
That was a scene,
we gotta get into
man.
It was ridiculous.
We'll get into it later.
We got a lot of time for. I got a lot
Let's
of takes
get the
on
blow
that.
up on the line and talk to him about his golf in Texas.
Okay, so here he is, Mr. Game 7 himself, special advisor to the Carolina Hurricanes GM, and I guess a pro on the Celebrity Golf Tour. Here's Justin Williams. How'd you end up shooting down there, Willie? We were watching you a couple of weeks ago down in Texas.
Were you watching? They panned over to me 1 second when they were done with Romo, did they?
Yeah, they found a little bit of time for you. I think you're putting your glove on at one point.
Willie, did you have to, like with all due respect, around here you're Mr. Game 7, very famous, but in the Pro-Am where people were they like, who is this guy?
most likely, but and they're everywhere. There were seekers even there with their blue pens, their blue Sharpies, looking for autographs. I mean, they're everywhere, right? They're not fans. They're just trying to kind of, sell your autograph for, who knows how much my autograph is worth now, maybe $1.50, $1.60 maybe. But they're out there. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, people are following the regular actual celebs, not the hockey guys.
Well, that's where the seekers can come in handy if you kind of float 100 to one of them and say, get your cronies together. And when I'm around, always be yelling for my autograph. And that puts everyone else on notice.
so to get you invited back, too, being like, whoa, they must really like this.
Oh, yeah. You can feed the seekers.
I choose not to feed the seekers. And I remember playing with you, too. I mean,
We're not getting into those old stories about the autographs.
You get off the bus, they say, Jeff, and he goes, take a lap, all of you.
That is a lie. We got to get to some hockey stuff.
Right, that can't be true. You throw him 100 afterwards, right, to make sure everyone was happy. Well, it's great having you on, Willie, and we want to ask you about the Carolina series, and you guys are still in a good spot, but obviously you're aware of what's going on up here, where everyone in Toronto is hoping that somehow they could take a page out of your LA Kings when you guys were down 0-3 against the Sharks. And I'm curious if you could take us back, inside the room for Game 4. Like, did you guys actually believe that you could come back and win the series? Like, was there actual belief, or were you guys just putting forth the front that, we could probably get this done?
So to answer your question, initially, yes, absolutely. But, before I, answer this question and get you kind of back to where, 2014 and what I remember was before any of this, before any of the belief stuff, you have to look around that dressing room, maybe before the game, and you got to make sure that every one of those guys in that room does believe it. I'm not privy to what goes on in the Leafs dressing room or anyone else's dressing room around the league. But when you look around the dressing room, and if you have a maybe, or I'm not quite sure that guy's he believes we can actually come back, then it doesn't matter what you do on the ice, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And eventually, since you have no room for air, he's going to take you down. So before anything, you have to make sure that everybody is in and everybody believes.
Well, when you say make sure, Willie, what do you got to do? Go up to somebody that you don't think is on board and say, hey, do you mind getting on board with us? That would almost be a pathetic experience, wouldn't it?
No, I mean, it's if when you look around a dressing room and you have that belief that you can do it. Because the rest of it really doesn't matter. So, being down 3-0, I remember this quote that Darryl Sutter had after Game 3. We had lost Game 3, and we went down 3-0 to San Jose. And after the game, he just looked around. He says, "I don't know if we're going to win this series, but we're not going away quietly." And that still resonates to me 9 years later. That you're right, we weren't. I was in every single scrum after the whistle. I would make sure to go by their bench and say, there's a lot of hockey to play. I would just reiterate that over and over and over again, and just believe and just get in every battle and win every single battle you go out there against, because, at the end of the day, it could be the difference. So if everybody is on board with that, then you have a chance. And then you win one game, and then 3 down, 3-1 doesn't look so bad. And then a little bit of pressure shifts over to them. And then you say, you know what? You battle out another game, and now it's totally turned, right? The pressure was on you, and now the pressure's all on them.
Willie, you mentioned Big D makes a comment. Was it also your star players that kind of dragged you through? That's kind of what we've been talking about the first 35 minutes of the show was, it's easy to talk about the guy, the seventh defenseman, sixth defenseman, guy who plays on the fourth line who had a good game. But, at some point, did your big boys have to step up, including yourself? I mean, you were one of those guys that were really pivotal in the playoffs. Did you feel like it was your star players that had to drag you through it and everyone kind of fell in line after that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Jamie. I mean, that just goes without saying. Your big boys have to drive the bus. They have to get in the front. They have to get in the ride, and off you go. And then the others say, you know what, this guy believes, maybe we can do this. And you just go shift by shift, and period by period, and slowly start to do it. But absolutely, to answer your question, yes. I mean, you need your big boys to show up. And it might be one game and one the other game. Maybe not every game, Austin Matthews or Nylander is going to, have to score 2 goals. But one game here or there, it might have to be your turn, and you just got to make sure you're there for it.
With Justin Williams, so at what point did it go from, okay, the LA Kings, we believe we can do this, to you looking across the ice and maybe you realize the San Jose Sharks started to believe they couldn't do it? When did you realize that they had issues?
Yeah, that's a thing too. And that's something you can't you can't really quantify with words. You just have to look into their eyes. And I remember Drew Doughty would come off after Game 6 and say, "Boys, we're doing this." Or after we had won Game 5 in San Jose, and he said he felt it right then that we were going to win that series. And you know what? Each game is its own entity, but the more you win, the more doubt arises on the other side. And I don't know how many guys have won the Stanley Cup on that side in Florida. Maybe you guys can tell me.
Not many.
Yeah.
Eric Stahl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? They're learning how to win as well. So it's hard to win, and you got to make them earn it. That's for sure. Because you give them a big head start.
No question about that. With Justin Williams. Go ahead.
Quickly, Willie, you just talked about winning in the playoffs. I know it's such a cliche. The game is different from the regular season to the playoffs. And you see top players, you see all sorts of adjustments. What do you think a top player who is maybe a finesse guy needs to do in the playoffs to be more effective with their game so that it translates to a playoff game?
Yeah, I think it's just one-on-one battles, right? I mean, I think we can all agree upon if you're a quote-unquote skill or finesse player that you kind of talk about, you need space and you need the puck, right? I mean, you're more effective when you have the puck on your stick. I mean, that's just simple.
Right.
So the more one-on-one battles you win or your line mates win for you, the more you're going to have the puck. So you start small, right? I mean, how many you got to have the possessions on your stick? 1, 2, 3. Maybe it doesn't work the third time, but maybe that fourth time, your skill kind of takes over and you get the play that you're looking for. So I would say one-on-one battles, making sure you're winning more than you're losing, and giving yourself more opportunities to let your skill get going.
Willie, you touched on how you guys did the unthinkable and you came back and won the series. And I know you're with Carolina and you don't like to comment too much, but let's say they claw their way back and they ultimately lose. Do you think there would be valuable learning lessons in that, or is that just another disappointment? I mean, we're talking about a team over 7 years cannot get over the hump. They got through one round. Let's say they clawed their way back and kind of caught Florida's attention. Is there anything to gain from that whatsoever?
I think if you ask them at the end of the series, and any fan, the answer would be no. But in the grand scheme of things, yes, absolutely. But the thing is, you only get so many kicks at the can with the same crew. Right?
No kidding.
People eventually lose their patience, and some teams are able to win quicker, and some have lessons to learn along the way. I don't know how this story ends for Toronto, but there are lessons in, hey, we came back, we didn't roll over. I think there'd be a lot more question marks on, things like playoff success if you just kind of laid an egg in Game 4 and just let them take it. That's one thing that you don't want. You don't want to give it to them. You want to make sure they have to come take it.
So, Willie, how you feeling about your Canes? They're still up 2-1. Yesterday was a wild one. But they're in a good spot. All those injuries, yet they're still leading the series. How are you feeling about your group?
I feel pretty good. I think. I mean, it's so. I just feel like you just want to get out there so much. And yes, last game was just one of those games that you wanted to have that equipment on and be on the ice. But I think we're in a good spot because obviously we're up 2-1 and a chance to go up 3-1. But the second part of it is I think it ratcheted up just another level last game with the hitting, with the fights, with the animosity, that I think you're going to see a more pissed off Carolina Hurricanes in Game 4. And I like that because we're certainly, with the injuries we have, we're not the most skilled bunch, but we have some talent and we play the right way and we play as a team. And I think when we're a little bit more pissed off, we play that much better. So I'm looking forward to Game 4. I'm excited for it.
Well, good luck with that. We always appreciate you finding time for us, and I'm sure we'll do it again down the road. Thank you for this.
Fellas, enjoyed it. See ya.
There he is, Justin Williams. special advisor to the GM down in Carolina, Mr. Game 7.
Golf pro, too.
And a big part of the Celebrity Golf Pro-Am Tour. Yeah, man, that's interesting insight, though. Like, looking around, you got to have everyone. But if there's one guy in that room that's like, we're done, you're done. You're done. And,
let me ask you this, Brian. If you were sitting in that locker room, what would your confidence level be looking around at those guys with what they've done? And
it'd be very low. It'd be very low, obviously. I mean, the difference is that Kings team, they had already won a cup. Like, that was a championship pedigree team, right? Like, they had already proven.
I'm not talking about pedigree. I'm just talking about a bunch of guys saying, we're not letting this happen. What are the odds? You think William Nylander's sitting there saying there's no way in hell these guys are taking this from us? It's a question.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know
have
either.
the answer,
Well,
but the fact that I don't, that probably is the answer. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.